All right, so here we're going to get started. I went ahead and loaded up some assets. Sorry about the wait. I'm going to basically take the Fantasy Grounds and show you how to build a basic character. And then after a while, I'm going to customize it. So right now, I'm just kind of laying out my screen. And what I did is I went into the library. And if you go to modules, that's how you activate stuff that you've purchased. Now, this is assuming that you have at least the player's handbook. You don't have to have all these different books. This is just stuff that I've purchased and collected over the months. I'm not even going to use most of it. Mostly it'll be just player's handbook, maybe a couple of the other add-on books. But this is basically what I'll be using for this tutorial. Also, on the right-hand side, you can see I have all these banners. I switched it to Create PC. That way it only shows which banners you're going to need for character creation. I don't have any characters created right now, and I do not have anything other than some NPCs loaded in this combat tracker. I'm going to make a drow type character, and I'm going to theme it after this background. This is AAW Games Rise of the Drow series, so I'm going to start building some characters for that game. So I want to share that with you, since a lot of you are post holidays. You might be updating or upgrading from Classic, or maybe you just got Unity, depending on what you need and what types of things that you would want to look for when you're trying to build a character. So hopefully this helps a little bit. I didn't really plan this. I just noticed a lot of people coming into our community, and they just got the thing and they want to really start get going on it. So character creation is probably the most important aspect of Fantasy Grounds. This is typically where things break. So when the game's not going quite right, it's usually because the characters are not created correctly. And that's just the nature of this. It's really takes a little bit of practice, I guess. And then you have to know all the different builds. So there's different ways of customizing the characters after you build the basics. But we're going to start with the basics first. So there is a wizard in this PC banner up here. There's a wizard that will help you build characters. It's this little star here. I don't use the wizard because when it comes time to leveling up, it's a little bit goofy. It's good to get started, but once you've started your character, you're going to have to learn how to do some of the stuff manually anyways. So until that's improved and basically built up, I'm going to show you the longer kind of roundabout way. This is the way we used to do it, and we still do. So if there's any preliminary questions, go ahead and ask. And I would like all of you to participate a little bit if you want. I'll look back at the chat occasionally. I apologize if you were not able to see my cursor all the time. So if you need something important, just ask here in the text chat, and I'll try to field that for you. And then at the end, I'll answer some other questions. There's people saying, well, what kind of account is it? And, can I upgrade to this? There's so many little niche things that people could want, or even important things. So we'll see what happens. All right, so first things first, I am going to go to the PC banner. And like I said, you need to have something loaded here. So if you don't have the player's handbook, and you have one of your core books or whatever it is that you're using, you need to have those loaded first. So in this case, I have the player's handbook loaded. You click on modules and it takes you into that group. And in that section is where all your content. And at that point, you will be able to load your content. So it just depends on what you own, what you've purchased, and what things that you need to build your characters with. Now, if you are using a different rule set, some of this won't be the same, but it will kind of tie into it. Character creation is where Fantasy Grounds differs. Most other rule sets that are out there, like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and those things are very similar, but they're not exactly the same. If you get like Conan or Savage Worlds or any of those other rule sets, they're a little different. So the character creation process is probably the most different thing in it. Do you have to be joined in a game before? If you don't have any content, yes. So if you don't own anything and you don't have a license, then yes, you'll have to have the demo and you'll connect to your Game Master's table. If you do have a subscription and you have a couple of your own books, then no, you don't have to. But you do need a license of some sort, and then you should probably go out and try to buy stuff. Now, you guys can enter a lot of your own data, but it has to be done in a certain way to make it come out right if you want the automation. So if you want to build your own content, it's going to take a little bit to understand Fantasy Grounds first, and then you'll be able to put in some really cool stuff. So I'm going to get started here on character creation. I'm going to make a drow assassin type, kind of like a spy sort of thing. So I might make this a basically some sort of rogue, build. This will make it so that I can show you more of the functions of Fantasy Grounds. If I just show you a fighter, it's just really not going to show much. So if you drop out like flies, I'm sorry, you can always come back and watch the rest of the video. It'll be archived on here. So if you want to load any content, you go to this data module activation area. Right now, I don't think I need any more content, but this is just an area where it's stored, and then you would click on load. If you want to filter out and just see what you have loaded, you click on this filter that says all, and it'll only show you the things that are loaded. And then that way you can unload stuff. Like, I don't need this random mount generator. That's for building horses. So that's just, for other play and for other types of settings. This is the Underdark, so I won't be using mounts too much. Anyhow, this is just the content I have. All right, so I'm going to close that, close this, and I'm going to build on this character concept that I have for this type of setting. So first thing I'm going to do is add an item, which is this plus button. And it creates a character sheet. Now, I imagine this is not the best color scheme to show this, but usually it's easier to see. This one is not as easy, but it's there. It'll work. This is kind of a 911. This is not really a formal lesson, so apologize on that. First things first. So I have all these stats over here. That's the first thing you want to do, other than put your name up here. So I'm just going to put Drow Spy up here. All right, and the stats are what you want to do first. You can do a point buy system, like 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Those are your basic numbers. Or if you use an online calculator, you can come up with your own. Or you can roll. So I'm going to roll 4d6, keep the top 3. And there's a formula. So /die, which is a command. So that tells Fantasy Grounds this is a die roll. 4d6, which is your dice you're going to roll. And these are all lowercase. And then K3, which is keep the top 3. So I'm going to drag and drop this into one of the hotkeys. So you have some slots down below. And what that does is so I don't have to keep typing it over and over and over. So I'm going to roll it 6 times. So I'm just going to click on that shortcut 6 times. And as you can see, I got some really crappy stats in here, but that's basically the luck of the dice. I mean, they're not too bad, but that's definitely something I wouldn't go with. But anyhow, it drops the lowest number for you, and then you can just drag these numbers over to your character. So I might take, like, for instance, this 11, and drag and drop it onto the character sheet. Or I might take this 15 and put it on the Dex area. So this is just a way to show you can do it different ways, or you can just manually type it in. It all depends on your game master. So I have basically a rough build here. So I have a 12, 15, 11, 11. I'm going to change that to 12. 11 or 10 wisdom, 12 intelligence, 13 charisma. So he's not superly powerful. So I kind of cheated. Yeah, the character wizard is a way or option to build your character. It basically gives you a shortcut on how to build your character. It allows you to build it without committing or breaking a character, because normally you have to do it in the order I'm about to show. And as far as the combat tracker, yeah, we don't need it up for this. Exactly. So that's why I closed it. Okay, so now I am going, so you do your stats first. I'm not going to cover the character wizard because it's kind of, first, to be honest, I don't use it, so I don't know much about it. I've played around with it, but it seems to kind of get away from, you know, learning how to use the software. So I don't use it at all, to be honest. And it's nice because you won't have to commit. So basically, once I'm at this point, once I start dragging and dropping things over, I'm committed. I can't go back and fix it. I have to start over. If you use the wizard, you don't have to worry about that. So the wizard's good for like first level, but then after that, you have to learn how to level it up properly and customize it. So I might as well learn the long way first. Once you get comfortable, then I would use the wizard to start your characters. That's what I would do. It's handy, and it allows you to, you know, build without committing. I mean, is you don't have to go back over and rebuild it. However, it sucks as far as learning the software. Okay, so the first step is ability scores. Second is background. So the next thing I'm going to do is click on this background banner. And I have a modified character sheet, so yours will look a little different. I have the portrait should be over here on this side. These are heavily modified, so I apologize for that. So the character sheet's going to look a little different. Okay, so this is the backgrounds. So this is a drow. So since I have backgrounds from different sources, like Underdark type things, there's a Daredevil of the Underdark, there's Drow House, Noble, Male, Female, and there's a Drow Lowborn. I think I'm going to take the Lowborn. So you're kind of at the bottom rung of society. So this is kind of a cool thing. You get, let's see, you get to pick from animal handling, medicine, performance, sleight of hand. You can choose one tool except for a gaming set. And then you get undercommon as a language. And there's some features in here that you get. So I'm going to pick that one. It's not too overpowered and it fits the character build. So you drag and drop this token onto the character sheet. And that populates the information, and it automatically will add it to your sheet. So it adds any pertinent skills that you have. So it added animal handling, medicine, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, or sleight of hand. Okay, it says, okay. So I got to adjust this a little bit because the way they created it, I didn't word it correctly. Because it has sleight of hand. So I can pick any and one of the following or sleight of hand. I might just go with sleight of hand. That's a dex-based thing. So I don't need this extra line in here. So I'm going to actually delete that. And I'll just go to sleight of hand and become proficient with it. And it's on deck. So you get a lot of cool abilities here right off the get-go. And this extra one up here, I'm going to delete that one too. So that's not necessary. Okay, so that's that. And the next step is to pick our class, excuse me, our race. So I'm going to be a half drow. So that will be like a half elf variant in this case. So if I go to races and you look at the list here, depending on your content, you may not have a half drow. I don't know what books you have, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pick the half drow, or in this case, it'll be a half elf variant. So half elf variant it's from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this and drag it. And then it wants to know what base race that you're based off of. So I'm going to click half drow. But there's some other types of things in here. Aquatic, wild, studied, fleet, versatile. Yeah, any of those. So I'm going to go ahead and click that one. And then I get 2 scores to increase. So obviously I'm going to do my dex. And I need 1 more. So anybody want to help me with that? Yeah, it's really... An alternative command is / Yeah, well, you would... Yeah, it would do the same thing, Andrew, I believe. Yeah, it is hard to read. I apologize for that. This is the really bad theme for this lesson. So I have dexterity to choose from, so I'm going to do that because I'm going to be a rogue. But I have intelligence, wisdom. My charisma's pretty high from my racial bonus. So should I do intelligence or maybe con? Because intelligence will give me more stuff to feed off of. And the other thing is I need to, let's see, not this and that. Yeah, so either con or intelligence. Because intelligence will give me more skill-based bonuses, and the con will give me a little bit more hit points. So it's kind of a choice. Yeah, you say con? Okay. Con it is. Yeah, my intelligence isn't that bad. So yeah, I think con's a good choice. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Constitution. Now, when this pops up when you're creating a character, don't dismiss it. If it's in your way, just drag it aside. Sometimes they'll end up behind the character creation window. So that's just a matter of getting to know the software. And then you hit this confirm button. If you X out of it, the opportunity kind of goes away and you have to do it manually at that point. So there's the stats. So I got a +2 on charisma, a +1 on intelligence or con, a +1 on dex. So that's from the half-elf variant. So on my abilities tab, it's already adding the features and the traits. So I do get drow magic. So I get a few spells. Yeah, that black on gray is really hard to read. That is horrible. Okay, so the next thing is to grab class and level. So there's a little magnifying glass here, and I click on that, it brings up the sheet. And this is where I'm going to drag and drop my class. You can just drag it on the sheet, but I want to show you how to do it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to classes. And I'm going to go down this list. So I could make him a bard, which might actually work, or a thief. What do you guys think? If he's a bard, he has a lot more skills and spell casting. But if he's a rogue, he has a lot more focused ability. So I'm not sure which direction I want to go, but basically I wouldn't mind doing some sort of build where, you know, he's obviously going to be good at sneaking around. He's not too bad as far as, you know, fighting and stuff. So I don't know. A bard would be more reliant on spell casting. Yeah, I think rogue too. So I'm just gonna pick there. See, you'll have several of them listed here. You can pick any of those and drag and drop them on your sheet. The problem with it is that if you get confused and you don't want to see all those, you have a group here in the classes and you can actually select which book you want to focus on. So if it's just a player's handbook rogue, you know, you don't have to see all those other ones. And this will keep your choices, you know, more consistent. There's nothing wrong with picking from one of the other books. It's just confusing. You got 50 things listed. So often I'll narrow it down and just show the character creation or the player's handbook for character creation. That way I don't get confused. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop the rogue. And immediately it wants the skills. So this is where the wizard is helpful. You can look at these more without committing, and it shows you what skills you already have. So I'm going to pick, let's see, stealth, because I already have sleight of hand. I have persuasion, performance, and medicine. So I think I'm going to pick insight, deception, if I don't already have it, yeah. And maybe acrobatics. Do I have perception? No, I don't. So instead of insight, I'll do perception. So he's kind of going to be like a spy type person. So it's going to be good if he can lie. Yeah. Got 2 rogues and a bard, so. Okay. This will be first come, first serve. All right, so now that I have that, I have a tool proficiency, and I'm going to make this the Thieves Tools, because that comes with being a rogue. So on your Abilities tab, it'll say Tools, and then the other one came from my background. It says any tool except for a gaming set. So I'm probably going to do like a, you know, some sort of leatherworking or something kind of useful for crafting. I can only have light armor, and I can have simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short blades. And that comes from my background of being a drow. Otherwise, I'd only be stuck with simple weapons. And then I have common, elvish, undercommon, and then I have 1 language of choice. So I'm going to pick dwarvish. You do have to spell that correctly. If you don't, this language filter in the chat area does not work right. So if you're curious what you should be looking for, especially if you're just a player, you go into the options window and click languages, and it will show you all the spellings. That's a really quick way to do that. Your game master will help you with it, but in case, that's where you can look. Okay, so I got my 4 skills. I need to commit those, so I'm going to hit OK. And it's added expertise to my sheet here. So at first level, I could pick 2 of my skills to be expert at. So if I go back to my skills sheet, I can pick any of these to be an expert at. So I'm going to be an expert stealth person. So you do that by clicking on the star to where it's 2 stars. And then probably maybe acrobatics or perception, maybe. I don't know. Or an expert liar. Or expert thieves tools. Not really much of a burglar so much, but I think persuasion maybe might be a good one to have. Yeah, I think I'm going to be able to persuade people really well. So I got a very sharp and intelligent way to persuade people away with words, and then I'm very, very stealthy. So that might come in handy for some kind of build that would incorporate these sorts of skills. So I'm kind of going with the spy thing. Okay, so now the next thing is I'm going to add another level. So let's do that. All right, so I have all my skills pretty much. I got my expertise out of the way. Other than that, I fixed my languages. I'll pick weapons and such later. I do need to pick one more tool. So maybe one of you can think of something that would be useful to my trade. I already have thieves tools. I can't have a gaming set. So for items, you can look under tools for that and find out which tools are available and go from there. Okay, so tool. So you have just artisan tools, cartography, cobblers, glassblower, jeweler, leatherworker. There's different kinds of things. Oh, tattoo artist. That was cool. There's a tinkerer. There's tools of torment. Huh. There's some woodcutter stuff. Woodcutter doesn't make sense, but you get the idea. So move that aside. Oh yeah, disguise kit. Well, that's a kit, not a tool. So unless I pick the background, now that doesn't mean I can't use it. I just won't be proficient with it. So if I pick my rogue background, I think I'll get that from the build, because usually it comes from your background or it comes from your class. But I think, yeah, maybe I will grab one just to have it, because that's a really good tool to have. Why don't I have disguise here? I guess that is basically my performance thing, is kind of a disguise type thing, so that's a great idea. Yeah, so this is more like buying an item to help supplement your performance. So maybe it will give me advantage on certain things. So I already have most of my equipment. Do I have a disguise kit? Nope. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these. Put it over there. There we go. This has a regular light crossbow on there, so I have to change my inventory. But nonetheless, I'm going to put a disguise kit on my list here, even though it's basically a performance roll. So I'm going to hit the edit button, hit this, and this would be disguise kit. There we go. So there's the disguise kit. All right, so the basics that I just showed you was abilities first, background second, race third, class is last. Now, the reason for that is if you don't do it in that order, your character calculations don't stack up properly. And then also the reason we do it this way is I pick background over race. And the reason why is because on your abilities, or excuse me, your skills, they'll overlap sometimes. Like you might pick this Drow Lowborn and already have, you get, a lot of skills. So if you pick this half-elf variant first, it'll ask you for skills, you pick them, then you add the background. It's going to potentially overlap on the skills that you get from your background. So that's why we do it in that order. You can interchange background and race, but it's better to do it this way to get the skills out of the way that are permanent, that you can't really change. And then all the other skills that you get from your race and your class, those you get to choose. So that's why we do that one first. Some people would argue that race should be second, but it just depends on how you build things. Also in your library, if you go to the book itself to the player's handbook. And if you click on reference manual, this is kind of important. You'll get the reference manual window, and this is the actual book. And then if you go to chapter 1, creating a character, it takes you into the steps. Now, if you create it the way it says in the player's handbook, this is for tabletop, this character won't come out correctly because it says do your race, your class, and then your ability scores. And that's very confusing. So I asked Smiteworks if they would add this addendum. So he put in there to add your ability scores, add your race, your background, and then your class. The main things is the ability scores first, class and level last. These two can be interchanged. So this is actually in the player's handbook. It's just you have to scroll down. It's not very visible. It was kind of added ad hoc at the end. So I asked them to do that because a lot of people were having trouble with that. Now, if you use the character wizard, it kind of helps you with that. But I don't know. I'm not really fond of the character wizard. That's just my opinion. You can use it if you want. How about a navigator's tool? Yeah, that would work, especially if I was on a boat or on a ship. So I might grab one of those actually later. We'll see. Okay, so now I'm going to level up. So all you have to do, it's really this easy. So first things first, before I build any customization, I want to drag this little dragon icon down to the hotkeys and my background. I'm doing that so as I get further into build, I don't have to go back. That's what I don't want to do. So I can have them right at my disposal. Now, to level up a character, all you have to do is pick up this little pin or the shortcut on the far right. It's underneath this level up and next to the use box. So just drag it over to the right and then drop it back in. And that levels you up to level 2. And if you have the content loaded, it'll automatically add anything that comes with your level ups as far as class features and those sort of things. So again, I'm going to level up, and at 3rd level, I'll get my archetype. And that's your specialization. So between 1st and 3rd level, depending on what class you are, they'll ask you for your specialization. Like wizards and clerics and druids get it at level 1. Some of the classes get it at level 2. And then like rogues and fighters and such get it at level 3. So I have this different things here. So I can pick a scout, a mastermind, or an inquisitive. I think those fit. Yeah, so class inquisitive is a master of seeking out and rooting out secrets and unraveling mysteries. So you have a sharp eye for detail. A mastermind, you focus on people and on the influence and secrets that they may have. So if you're a spy, the mastermind might be a thing. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to be using. And a scout is more like the bounty hunter type thing. So, and also, you know, being on the lookout, knowing the city and that sort of thing. So I think mastermind is the closest to spy. Question, any way to easily mass deselect the green share with players' flags so that all the random things in my library aren't presented to players during... Yeah, they can filter out the same thing. So if they go to... they can do the same thing. Once the books are shared with... If they go to, like, let's say background, they can just select which source material they want to work out of. And that filters it out. And that's true of anything. You learn to use Fantasy Grounds, you learn to use those filters. So if I only want to see the skills in the player's handbook, I'd pick the player's handbook. So that's just getting to know the software and where things are at. Yeah, so, yeah, exactly. So if you need them to only choose from that book, you have them filter it out to which book they want to look at. It's that simple. All the random things in my library. Yeah. The other thing is don't load what you don't need. So that you don't really know that initially, but as time goes on, you'll start realizing there's some stuff doesn't need to be loaded. Okay, so the other thing is now I need to pick my subclass. So I'm going to pick the Mastermind, which is a spy-like build, and I'm going to hit this OK. And you get a bunch of extra features, and it tells you, let's see, did I get any extra skills? Nope. But basically, on your abilities, you get cunning action, which we'll deal with later. Expertise, I've already dealt with that. I don't need to worry about it. Infernal Talisman. Let's see. Talisman is 3 types of... Huh. I wonder why I have that. That's really weird. I don't think that's quite right, but I'll look at that later. Lowborn Drow. This is more of a role-playing thing, but I'll put that over here. Master of Intrigue. So this is part of your background, and it says when you choose this archetype, you gain proficiency with the disguise kit, the forgery kit, and 1 gaming set. So, like you said, we have the disguise kit. Now we need a forgery kit and some other things. So that's what I'm saying. It comes with your backgrounds and such, but we already have the tool in the inventory, so I'll grab the others. Forgery. So now we're getting into the customization part. If you build the character in the way I showed you in the first 4 steps, that will be helpful. The rest of this is customization and choices. So the forgery kit. So I'm going to put that in my inventory. If I don't already have it. Yeah, I don't have that. And then it says you can mimic the speech patterns of a creature that you hear within 1 minute, allowing you to pass off a particular... Oh, that's cool. But you get the disguise kit, forgery kit, and a gaming set. So I am going to get a dragon chess, or not. I want some dice. So there's a dice set, and I'm going to put that also in my skills. So here is a gaming set, and I'm going to go ahead and change that to Dex. And then I have added on the, forgery kit. I'm going to base that off of... Let's see. Probably intelligence makes more sense. Might be dexterity because you have to write it out, but eh. Okay, so that's that. So I kind of took care of the Master of Intrigue, other than the role-playing aspect where you can mimic people. Let's see. So that. Okay, so I'm no longer going to be editing this area in the skills, probably. And it says, let's see, Master of Tactics. So at 3rd level, you use the help action as a bonus action. That's cool. Let's see, Mastermind. This is your build, and you get these Master Intrigue, Master of Tactics. That just gives you a rough idea of how things are put together for the lot. By default, a new campaign has... Yeah, that was set to load it, and that has something to do with the way they made it. So Those are loaded automatically because of the way they built the module. It didn't used to do that. Yeah, I don't know if you even need. I think you're misunderstanding, Naughty Bits. I think you're making it harder than it needs to be. So by default, a new campaign has a lot of. No, it doesn't. Only if you have those modules installed. But they did change it to where the content is automatically loaded. So yes, it's annoying. You have to talk to Rob about that because he actually had it made that way. When you load those modules, they automatically become available. And I don't like that, but that's just how he did that. It didn't used to do it before. So you have a couple DMs, modules, and ventures that have the whole shared out. See, that doesn't make sense. If that's the case, then something's broken, and that's to do with the people who build the modules, not Fantasy Grounds. So that's something that it's a very annoying. I know what you're talking about. There's not much you can do about that other than talk to the authors. But you can stop the player by clicking on the green. Yeah, but what he's saying, Andrew, is you have to always do that, and it's annoying. He wants to be able to set it and not have to keep doing it. And I understand what you mean. Every time you start a new campaign, you have to deal with that. Yeah, it is annoying. I agree, but a lot of it has to do with the way the modules are created. Because you can select if it's a player module, or you can select if it's a read-only. There's different options you can have when you export a module. And some people don't understand how it affects the library view and the game master side of things. So you have to complain to the authors. Okay, so the next step is looking through these traits and features. So I got that. Roguish archetypes just basically tells you you're a rogue. Sneak attack is something that we'll deal with later. Steady aim is an option. So for a third level feature, if you want to switch it out with something, I think, as a bonus action, you have advantage on your next attack roll on the current turn. You can use a bonus if you haven't moved during this turn and after you use the bonus action. Your speed is 0, but you can use that. It basically gives you advantage. And then Thieves' Cant is not really an official language, but your game master can add it, and then you can add it to your sheet if you want to do that. So in the options, the game master would have to create a language, then you would be able to select it in your drop down and in the you can put it on your character sheet as long as it's spelled correctly. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to take a look at some of the more customization, basically. So this is why I've taken these and broke them out so that I don't forget them. And we're done leveling up. So we can say that we're at, say, 900 experience points. I have an extension that automatically puts in your next level up. But that's basically how you level up, is drag and drop the class back into its own little box here. Okay, so we have Drow Magic. I have to deal with that later because that gives you a few spells. Fey Ancestries, we're going to deal with that. Light Armor, we know that. We already got our gaming set, our Thieves tools. We'll get our equipment's already kind of building up back there. And then I have languages. So this is what you have to deal with on this screen. If you have any feats, you would drag and drop the feats into this area up here above. But for the most part, this group is pretty much done. Now for this background information. So this is going to be a male. And you do need to put your alignment in here. I'm going to make him neutral evil. Now, the only two things mechanically that matter is the alignment and the size. Everything else is role-playing. I mean, it matters mechanically. So the alignment has to do with spells that are based off good and evil. The size has to do with your token size and your reach, those sort of things. So those need to be there. Usually the medium size or whatever size you are comes over when you build your character. But if it's not there, something's broken. And then for neutral evil, the reason I have it like this is so that when you have a spell that's like protection from evil, it'll actually work. So if you just put NE in here, or you don't put anything in here, or you don't spell it right, it's not going to parse correctly. And that may have changed, but that's how it used to be. And then the personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. Now you can make up your own, or you can use the ones that come from your background. So I bookmarked the background earlier. Let's see, I had Rogue, Drowborn. And if you scroll to the bottom, there are 4 tables. So personality traits. So let's roll this. So it says, I flatter those who seem dangerous or powerful enough to make profits and stay alive. Sounds like me. And then you pick 2 of these maximum for, for initial build. I have always secretly been curious about cultures other than my own, including the surface world. Perfect. So he's going to be a spy. That's a perfect thing to have. Okay, so the ideals, you get 1 of these. Survival. Nothing matters more in the Underdark than ensuring your continued survival. Perfect. This guy's neutral evil. He's all about the survival. And then your bonds. So you can drag these from the text from the table or from down here in the chat area. So he had a rival at one point, and he has to get it back at him. So that's one of his bonds. And now his flaw. Oh my god, I thought... He's devoted to Lulth still. So that's one of his flaws. So he still believes in Lulth and he worships her. So up here, I could put that up here. His deity is Lulth. Okay, so that's basically the background stuff. If you want to add notes, you can. Like, sometimes your background will give you an extra feature that will be like a rank or a contact or some sort of special thing that you might have to fill out in your notes. But that's the background. And that's pretty much it. Now all I'm going to do is probably adjust my inventory. Does alignment? Yes, it does, Deep Learner. Yes. Will the spelling neutral? No. It has to be capital N and a capital E. A lot of people don't know that. I don't know if that's a thing still or not, but it used to be in Classic. So when you cast a spell, it has no way of knowing your alignment if that is truly not filled out or if it's just a abbreviation. So you want it to be capital N, capital E for neutral evil. Yep. So I could be wrong. They might have changed it since then, but there would be no other way. How would it know if you are good or evil? So pretty sure that's still a thing. I don't know if it's as strict as it was before, but I know it's been broken where if you don't do it, then it's not going to trim out right. The second one, there's a space. Andrew. Okay. So the next thing is the log sheet is for Adventure League. So if you participate in that, that's what that's for. Never mind this stuff. This is from an extension. This keeps track of all your hits and your crits and stuff. That's a whole nother thing. Journal is not a normal page. This again is from a extension. Okay, so inventory. So there's a way to organize your inventory. So right now I get arrows. So I'm going to substitute those for bolts. So I'm going to delete that. There's a backpack and it says empty. That's because everything's exploded out. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the word empty. And just keep the word backpack, and you want to make sure you delete the space after. And do I have a pouch? No, I do not. So I'm going to grab a pouch, and I need a crossbow and not a short bow. A hand crossbow at that. And then I don't see any. Do I have rations? Yep, I do have rations. I have rope. I have a string, thieves' tools, tinderbox, crowbar, a couple daggers, a dice set. Okay, so we're getting there. So in my backpack, I'm going to store some things. But I need a pouch. And I need my case. That's for your crossbow bolts. That's where you store them. And I don't need a quiver, so that's what that takes the place of. I have a rapier, which is fine. Forgery kit, disguise kit, dice kit, okay. And then I need the hand crossbow. Hand crossbow. Okay, and then the bolts. So here's the crossbow bolts. And that's pretty much, I'm going to give him 1 potion of healing. So I'm nice like that. 1 potion of healing is not going to break the bank. And that should be good for changes in inventory things. So I have an extension that automatically adds your background equipment and your class equipment. The only problem is that it's kind of, you know, very selective. So if you want to change something, you'll have to go in like I did and kind of manually fix it up. But it's so much easier than dragging one thing at a time or having to create it. So if you are inclined, there is another module that Rob put out called the background equipment, or it's called background and class equipment bundle. And basically it's a bunch of parcels. And what they do is they'll have all the starting equipment in there, and then the other bundle will have all your class equipment. So if you click on this, actually will give you anything that is needed to add to your for your class and background. It's based off the starting equipment, but it's not 100%, you know, because there's an A and B list. This only adds the stuff from the A list. So you'll still have to make a few changes, but it's easier than trying to drag everything over. It cuts down on a lot of time. So you can see it's almost done. I just had to make changes. All right, so that's a third-party thing you can get on the DM's Guild. Let's see. And then I'm going to rearrange my inventory. So right now, my encumbrance is 77.62 pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of start rearranging stuff. So to do that, you type in the container that you want to store it in on the right-hand side in the location sign. So the ball bearings are going to go in the pouch. You want to spell it with a capital, just like it's spelt here. Otherwise, this nesting thing doesn't work very well. So there's a bell. That's going to go in the pouch. Candle. Okay, so the bolts are going to go in that case. Thought I dragged that over. Case, where'd it go? Huh. Oh, it's there now. Let's see. Backpack for the crowbar. So you don't put your weapons, your armor, or your shield in your inventory for your backpacks, I mean. But everything else can go in your backpack. So the dice will go in a pouch. So what I'm doing right now is just organizing inventory. And what you'll get here is just like nested, they'll be indented, and anything stored in the backpack will be under that heading. And then anything in the pouch, same thing. All right. So this is all organized now. And what will happen is, first thing, Fantasy Grounds doesn't normally keep track of coin weight. So if you get any coins or such, it's not going to track the weight of that. There's an extension I think that you can get for that, or you can manually keep track of it. But for the most part, it doesn't count the gold weight. So if you have a lot of gold, as a game master, you'll have to keep an eye on that. Or you can make an item that weighs about the weight of a coin, and then you can just put a total number of coins in the amount here, and it will give you a rough idea of how much you're carrying in gold weight. Let's see. So we got all the weapons here, and everything is organized. So the reason I did it this way is if you want to drop the backpack, there's a carried symbol between the weight and the description. So if I click on it to where it's not carried, the weight comes off. Once you want to put that back on, the weight's on. So if I had a bag of holding, I would just call it bag of holding, and then I'd carry the bag of holding, but I would have everything else turned off for weight. That way it doesn't count against your encumbrance. So there's ways to work around some of the limitations. So if I had any coins, those would go down in here. So I just gave him 5 gold. So he's a drow lowborn, so he didn't start with any gold, but he's 3rd level now, so he might have a few on him. And he's a spy. So let's see, crossbow, okay. So you got the hand crossbow and the bolts. And the bolt, without having the bolts, it will not set up your actions correctly, like with your ammo. So if you put bolts in your inventory, that's where this ammo comes from, or the crossbow itself. And then daggers also set up a thrown property. So the hand crossbow is really one-handed, and it has 20. And your dagger, he has 2, and then your rapier's right here. So when you have those equipped, it does add them to your actions tab. The next thing is your main tab, he has leather armor on. So he has a +3 to his dex. And I don't see any armor here, so I have to check that. But basically, he would get 1 more point for that for leather. So let me take a look at his inventory. I'm going to give him studded leather. I don't think that's going to hurt him any. Let me take a look at his inventory. Yeah, he has leather and it's equipped. How weird. Well, I'm going to take that off and give him studded leather anyways. Studded leather. Let's see if it changes his thing here. Yep, now it's at 15. So that's right, he's got 2 added. No disadvantage. So he's got some cool studded leather armor. So it gives him a little bit more protection. So he's kind of vulnerable to attack, but normally they stay out of the way, so hopefully he won't get juked too bad. Thank God for the D&D Beyond. Yeah, it helps, but it's still kind of iffy sometimes. Like if you build a basic character in the converter, it helps the process go quicker and then you import it. But I still end up having to do all the customization myself. So I rarely use it, and I use it on a base character, so I'll just make I'll do the first few basic things on the converter, and then all the rest of the spells, the items, and all that, I'll do that in Fantasy Grounds. Okay, so the next step is to start taking a look at some of his special ability. So this is where a lot of people get kind of wrapped up in the automation part. Just remember that 5th edition is kind of a special case. It does not always have everything coded or automated, and a lot of the other rule sets do not either. So this is not the norm for Fantasy Grounds as far as automation goes. So there's been a lot of extra work and community development. So I'm going to add some of these actions if needed, but it looks like the plugin that I have has done most of it. I have dodge, help, hide, and ready. And I'm going to put a little B next to this for bonus action, because that's one of my features that I get. Drow Magic is just a series of spells, so I can drag and drop those over into here. And then you have some items here that are expendable, including a potion, and that's already been set up. And then you have your rogue ability, sneak attack, and your master of tactics. So these are all set and ready to go. Now this isn't normal. I have an extension that normally you'd have to build these yourself or drag and drop them from the spells area if you have Rob 2E's coding effect. So the only thing I have to do now is actually add the spells from the Drow Magic. The reason they don't do it is because they don't know what level you are. This doesn't have a lot of ways to parse that information, but you can only use 1 per day. You get the cantrip of Dancing Lights, and then you can cast Fairy Fire once per day after a completion of a long rest. So this is set up for, let's see other ball bearings. I set that for once. Crowbar can be used as many times as you want. The lantern can be used every time you want. But the oil, you only have 2 flasks. So you can add candles, your all your consumable items. Potion is 1, and that's only a one-time use. Now the Drow Magic, you get 1 use of the 1 spell, but the other one is set up like a basically it's a cantrip, so you don't have to worry about it. So you get the Dancing Lights and you get Fairy Fire. So what I'm going to do is just search for those. So here's Fairy Fire. So it's 60 feet, and it is a concentration spell. And I'm going to drag and drop it into the drow area. So that's the actual spell, and that's the one you can only use once per day. So I'm going to set this up as a charisma ability because it needs to have, that's what it's based on, is charisma. And then uses daily is only 1. So, oops. I didn't mean it. That sets it for the group. I meant to do it at the other level. So I just wanted the casting correct, and it is an ability. So, and then the other thing is to grab the dancing lights. Okay, dancing lights. It's going in the elf area. There we go. So that is basically your character build. And the reason this went so fast is because I have an extension that adds these automatically. But you have to have Rob 2E's coding effects loaded first. So that is class features, there are spells, there are racial traits, and feats. And that's what these purple modules are. And then that background one is handy too, the background and class equipment. So that's a full build here. The only thing I haven't done okay, so portrait. So you need a portrait. And Fantasy Grounds, actually, Smiteworks added some new ones. It's under a folder called FG Fantasy. They have some sci-fi ones. These are yes, you're right. The dark theme is horrible. I'm going to change that. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I'll tell you which ones I'm using. And I'll put them in the description when I got time too. So I'm going to find a drow portrait. I don't really mind which one it is. Here's an elf with purple hair. What do you know? Perfect. And it makes this little token here. Now, if you don't have a token, it uses your portrait by default. I do have a little portrait though, or a token. So in the tokens area, I'm going to my data folder, and I have an Underdark folder. Now these are all commission folders, but there's an assassin type here, and then like a houseless rogue, and then this person here. I think I'm going to use this guy with a rapier and a hand crossbow, or I could use Jarlaxle, or let's see, what's the other one? Here's the, oh yeah, I want to use this guy. So now he has a specific token. But if you don't have a token, you can always drag this over and put it back, and that will be your base token. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and close this stuff down. And now the combat tracker. So once your characters are done and your DM is ready, they need to put you on the combat tracker. So you just drag, the DM can only do this. So you drag that over, and there you go. So now you're on the combat tracker. Now when you're playing, you just want to set up your sheet like I have it here. And then I'm going to close all this stuff, and that way the other third of your computer would be for your maps and such. as a player. And then I'd have it on down below here, combat and action. So I got all the buttons ready to go and everything's set. The only thing I would probably do is take my initiative score, drag and drop it, so I have the roll available, ready to go. Also a couple skills, so I'd probably put stealth in one. So I'm going to put my stealth roll in one of the slots, and probably perception. And that's how I would go. Oh, and then there's a pass the turn over here, or next actor, or, you know, end of turn, or whatever it says for a player. You can drag and drop that too. There we go. So I have this wasted out bridge. So once you're ready to go, then all the enemies could be put on the combat tracker. So I'm only gonna put a few on here. This is way too many. This would probably kill him. So now that I have those enemies, I can drag the hostiles out. I'm gonna make them visible. And then the player would be on this side. So you'd have to find a way across. All right, so that's basically the gist of it. And then you would just run your game as normal. So that's how I'd have my table laid out, just as a tip for players. Is I'd have the map here, my character sheet, and then all this stuff here. It's kind of an ideal layout, doesn't have to be this way. Some of you have smaller screens, or, you know, there's going to be variations. And then there's the zoom to fit button, so if you get lost, or you can navigate like that, zoom in a little so you can see what's going on. Then if you were going to fight, let's see. So this guy's turn is first. He's probably just moving. So click the down arrow and it's his turn, this Drow warrior. So he's going to use your short blade. And he missed. So I dodged out of the way. And now it's my turn. So I would go to my actions tab. And probably first I'd want to enable my Fey ancestry, because that's part of my, my inactive, or whatever you call them, passive abilities. So I'm going to go ahead and attack him. So I'm going to use my rapier. I missed. He dodged out of the way. So anyways, we'd be here all day dancing around fighting. So anyways, that's the end of the tutorial. I hope that helps a little. I apologize about the theme. That was really stupid. I should have thought about that, but I already had this loaded for something else. So now I know not to use this theme. It's a little bit too dark. I think they could lighten this up a touch. So I'll talk to Josh about that. But for the most part, just remember the main thing is the abilities, backgrounds, race, and then class. If you get that correct, most of this other stuff is all just choices and customization. So it's just a matter of time and practice to get these to come out like this. So I was asked to list off some of the things I used. I used the player's handbook. I used, let's see, what's the other module I have? There's another one that allows you to, it'll add the actions automatically, and then here's some of the item coding effects. I think I used potions in this one. And then there's some, one thing from Rise of the Drow that I used, I think it was a background item. And then I have, of course, the Sword Coast Adventures Guide was another thing that I used for the background. And then the 5e effects coding for rings. I didn't use that. But I used Player's Handbook, Sword Coast Guide, and I had some extensions that allow you to, when you're building your character, it'll automatically pull in what you need for your character based off of the Rob 2e effects coding. So they work together. The extension recognizes that you're adding these features of background and race and class. And as you're doing that, it's adding those automatically to your character sheet, so you don't have to do it manually. So normally when you get a Fantasy Grounds character, you're not going to have all this hoopla on here. You have to add that yourself. So that's just customization part of it. But other than that, if you have, like I said, the abilities, background, race, class. So A, B, R, C, I guess is a way to remember it. Yeah, most of the others are better, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. In the characters, where do you put things like favorite enemy and criminal contacts? Okay, criminal contacts would just go in your notes. So if you have those and you go to your basically it's the log sheet, or excuse me, the this journal sheet or whatever, this is, or your notes, this is where that would be listed. So you'd say contact, and you would list wherever you can also put your favorite enemy just as a note there. But as far as actions go, you can make something called favorite enemy and add it as an action to make a note for you. And you might get advantage on certain rolls, and you get their language. So your favorite enemy, you would add their language manually to the language area, whatever your favorite enemy was, if it does speak. So that would all be manual pretty much. What extensions exactly? Well, I'll list those on the description of the video, but they're on the DM's Guild. Yeah, Brian. They're on the DM's Guild. I don't recommend using them until you get a good feel for how to use Fantasy Grounds, but they have to be loaded before you load your campaign. And they are from Rob 2e's publishing group, but they're under Mad Nomad's extensions. And they're on the DM's Guild. And one of them is automatic actions, which is what I have. But you have to also have Rob 2e's coding effects. Otherwise, it doesn't pull from anything. So that's why I'm saying that it's better if you learn to just kind of build casually first and then seek out all those extensions. I mean, I know I showed that to you. You're going to be wondering about it, but the main thing you need to worry about is the build order and how the character goes together. The detailing of it is all manual pretty much. Before Mad Nomad made that extension, you had to go and build those sections yourself, the ones that are on my Actions tab. So that's just something that is kind of over the top of the lesson. So the main thing is getting this character stuff built, get that down so you're not struggling, and then add extensions and stuff later. Once you start adding extensions, you're going to rely on them, and then you're going to wonder why they don't work once they break. It's just it's a vicious cycle. So just make sure you understand Fantasy Grounds first, and then go for the gusto. But they are on the DM's Guild. I will list them in the description. There's links that I can add. And then I think the problem is that it's quite complex to add actions normally and get, yes, exactly. You can do it, but you have to learn how the wording is. It's just like learning another language basically, but it is very basic, but you need to get your head wrapped around how to build the character in Fantasy Grounds first. Yeah, like renaming groups, exactly. So that's the thing about it, is you don't want to get too overwhelmed, because then you're going to get pissed and you're not going to want to deal with it. So try to learn in steps, be patient and build up. Take some of our classes in the college. play in a couple one-shots, that sort of thing, so that you can get a feel for everything and then start adding all that complication to it. Because it can get very complex. And not to mention, I just did one character. So imagine you have to learn all the little ins and outs of all the other character types too. Because every archetype, every race, every class, every background, they all have different things. And your combination will have different combinations. So with each build comes a different way to customize it. The approach is the same, but what they actually get, knowing what's automated, what isn't, all that, there's no list. That's just all learning how to use the software and learning what's what. So I would probably suggest you don't be a one-trick pony. Make sure you learn how to build more than just one class. You don't have to do one at a time, but you need to learn at least to make a wizard, a warlock, all the different types. So I will end the stream shortly. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that it's improving, because it was horrid at first. I know it's hard to level up with the wizard. It works great for first level. And that's another thing I forgot to mention when we were doing the character building, is when you created your first level character, in your PC area, you can export the character. So if I click the edit button, and then I click this arrow, I can export that character. You want to do that before each level. That way, if you break something or it gets screwed up, you can go back to the last level. Otherwise, you have to rebuild the whole character, and it sucks. So that's one bad thing about doing it this way, is it creates a potential of having that, but don't forget to export it before you level up. That way you can have this same character at all 3 levels. And the other thing you want to make sure of is that when you are picking your skills at level 1, you're always going to have 4 skills or more. So if you don't have 4 skills after level 1, then you've doubled up somewhere. So that's another way you could check. So before you go to level 2, make sure you at least have 4 or more skills. And that's generally a way to tell if it's broken. So that's a little pointer. But anyhow, nice to see you all, and thanks for joining. I kind of did this as an after Christmas thing so that people can get started. There's a lot more to it. Every rule set's a little different, but the DM side of things it's pretty straightforward if you're used to being a game master. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a day. Any last questions before I go? I'll add in those links to the description of the stuff that I used. Going once, going twice. All right, well, let's call it a stream. I think I rambled enough, so I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.